Hi, I'm Ben,
And I'm Ernie.
And I'm Erin.
and this is Budget Nerds.
It was all in your mind.
You are not alone.
No, you are not. Well, today we have very special guests. Erin's here again. This is your second time on Budget
I know,
Nerds,
I feel
right?
so special that I made it back a second time. I must have done okay the first time.
Yeah, but this is your first time with me because I was on paternity leave last
that's
time.
right.
You were here.
You were on
Last
leave.
time it was just you
Yeah.
and Ernie.
Yeah.
So,
And what did we
yeah.
talk about last time, Erin? Was it groceries?
I feel like maybe, is this my third time?
Maybe it is your third
No,
time.
I don't think I've had,
I don't know.
I don't think I've had the privilege of talking to you guys about groceries. I think we talked about my kitchen reno.
That's what it
That's
was.
what it was.
I think that's what
Okay.
it was.
Well, we're not talking about kitchen renos this time. We're
Nope.
talking about the whole house.
The whole
that
house.
you paid off. Hey-o,
Oh, my
mortgage
Lord.
pay off.
You did beat me. We had a friendly competition going, but it's okay. I was
Well,
happy for you,
there were
and it
reasons.
inspired me. Yeah.
But,
No, I
yeah.
paid it off. I can't even believe it. It isn't really real yet because the financial impact hasn't quite hit me because it's still pretty fresh. But yeah,
So you paid that off back in June,
Yep.
correct?
Yep.
And today we're recording on August 1st. So this is the second month
Yeah.
where you don't have a mortgage payment.
Yeah.
Did it feel different when you opened the budget this morning?
No, because I'll
yet.
get into this when I get into the
hasn't
YNAB.
caught up with you yet, right?
Yeah, it hasn't caught up with me yet because what they did is they rolled the escrow into the payoff. And then, so that lowered the payoff, but then I had to immediately come up with the homeowner's insurance and half the property taxes. So I
You're
haven't
still
really,
filling in all the holes in your budget.
Still filling it a little bit, yeah. So that's all
that the
good,
last
though.
stretch caused, but you're
Yeah.
there. And so
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
very exciting. So yeah, why don't you tell us a little bit about, how you did this and we can get into the nerdy details later, but just how are you feeling?
Absolutely. I do feel kind of compelled to talk just a little bit about, it's interesting. I felt a little conflicted when I paid this off because it's a really hard time for a lot of folks with housing right now. And I feel pretty lucky. And there's one thing that I keep hearing a lot from people when I talk about it is people say, well, you worked really hard. And it's like, well, I did, but that's not the whole story, So I just wanted to talk a little bit about that because I feel like there were lots of factors. Yes, I worked hard. I made some decisions and made some trade-offs. But, if we go back to like the very beginning, I bought my first house. And this is, I think anyone who's trying to find a house right now or trying to deal with a mortgage right now will appreciate this. I bought my first house in 98 and I had been looking for a while. And one of the first things I got for help was I got to stay with my mom for a little while at reduced rent to save the down payment. Not everybody has somebody that can help them like that,
And was that for you? What time was that in your life when you moved in with your mom for a bit?
I was just in my early 30s.
Okay,
So,
okay.
yeah. It kind of worked out. She gave me like a reduced, we kind of worked out a little deal. I didn't want to do it for nothing. That didn't feel fair,
Right.
So she got a little and I got saved for my house,
That's awesome.
So I finally found this house and it was listed at $99,000, which I don't even know if you can.
My goodness.
I know, it's crazy, right? So, but the broker said, look, Erin, it was an old New Englander. And she's like, it needs some things. It's not going to go for 99. It's overpriced. And I'm like, all right.
All right.
And she's like, I think you should lowball. And I'm like, all right. Can you, first of all, does anybody even lowball today? Like people are
Times were
paying
different in 1998.
No
right?
way.
People are paying tens of thousands over asking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
So we offered 88 and they didn't counter.
Okay.
And I was like, uh-oh, I've overplayed my hand. So she's like, we're going to wait on this. You wait 6 months and you'll get this house for 88. I'm like, now, can you imagine that? A broker saying to you today,
love
just wait
this.
6 months.
I love this realtor because, most realtors are like, oh, we got to make the sale, because they want the commission. And they were like, no, we're going to wait.
We're going to wait. You can
They
get
really
it for
did
the
what's-
lower price.
They did what's best for you. That's
But
awesome.
here's the other thing about 98. The interest rate on a 30-year at the time was 5%, and everybody thought that was so low. It would never go below 5%. And people were like, you better find something and lock in
Right.
because it's going to go up. And so I felt this pressure, and I ran the math and I called her like a month later. The house had moved, just like she said. And I said, I want to go back and offer 93 because it's 93 at 5% or it's maybe 88 at 6%, which will end up costing me more. And I just want the house. Let's have the little old lady have the money instead of the bank. and I just want the house. So we offered 93 and they took it. So now that's one part, but here's the crazy part of the story. And this will give you an indication of how the housing market has changed. I sold it 7 years later for $230,000.
Wow.
That's crazy.
That is
crazy. And
So
people
that was
were like,
2005. You sold it then.
yes. And people
Okay.
were like, oh, you made a killing. I'm like, on paper. But
then
I
you needed
needed
to buy
that
another
money
house.
to buy the next house. Like,
Right.
so you can't, like, and I didn't do anything. I think I took off a 3-season porch and put a little bit of a better room on. I didn't do anything that was worth that kind of a price increase. So what did that have to do with hard work? Nothing. I just got
Just
lucky in
timing.
the timing of the market. You know what I mean? So I also had, in the time that I've been paying off this mortgage, I have a decent side hustle that helped contribute. I took out some index funds that I had saved that had taken a little bit of a loss. And I said, I can take like 9 months off the payoff those were all things. I'm healthy. I haven't had any big medical. I don't have any kids. I hear they're really expensive.
I actually just recorded a podcast episode a little bit about that.
So I just anybody that's feeling like, oh, I just need to work harder to pay it off. Well, there were a lot of other things that factored into it aside from my ability to make decisions and work hard. You know what I mean? So I just want to give everyone a little break. And anybody that's new on the journey, like, I do think that there are smart things you can do, because I think some of the decisions I made early, like I did not buy more house than I could afford. They will try to loan you as much as they think they can safely loan you. And I know
This
it's a
is
little
so
bit of a
true,
different
yeah.
market today, but I had a hard limit on when I was buying this house, and I'm like, I'm not moving an inch over this threshold, because they probably would have loaned me another $100,000.
Oh, absolutely.
But
totally.
I was like, nope, I'm not. I need to I wanted to get it paid off before retirement, because I'm like 3 to 5 years out from that. So anyway, just be smart about what you can really afford. And I think YNAB really helped with that. Sometimes I think, you guys, like back when I bought my first place, I wasn't budgeting, because YNAB, I'm not even sure Jesse was born, but like, you know, like, but I'm like, how did I even make those kind of crazy, like, it's such a big thing when you sign up mortgage, and I just was like,
Yeah.
yeah, that should be good. Like, but this time I knew exactly what I was getting into, because I already had YNAB, but I knew how much money I could really afford. So anyway.
And what prompted that decision to look for another house? Why not just stay in the current house?
I was trying to move up
Paid
closer.
off.
My sister lives up this way, and I wasn't the last house I was in was near my teaching job, and I wasn't teaching down there anymore. So I will say though, like, you could argue that just staying put, because it's expensive to move. Like, when you sell a house, there's fees and closing, like, is all of that. But if I'd kept the first house, I would never have found YNAB, because it was debt from the second house that made me go looking.
Right,
So
right,
I wouldn't
the
even know you
renovations.
guys.
Interesting.
Wow. Yeah, it's funny how those things. I often think about that little moments in your life where you're like,
Yeah.
if I hadn't done this, I wouldn't have done that. And,
Yep.
it's crazy.
I thank my credit card debt for all the good fortune I have today, because that's what sent me searching for YNABs.
It was a good thing in the end. I can thank my first child, put it that way.
Yeah,
So there you
exactly.
go.
And then before we get into the nerdy details, I just wanted to say too, like, if you're like really early in your mortgage, like, mortgages exist for a reason. I couldn't have got a house without a mortgage, and I didn't realize this, but the 30-year mortgage is only like 100 years old. It came out of the Great Depression.
Right.
The last time we had a big housing crisis, and the Federal Housing Administration was created. And what they did is they said to the banks, we will insure the loan. If you will give people mortgages, we've got your back if they default. And that made it easier for banks to loan, because the risk was lower with the government backing the loan. And so more people were able. Before that, you had to either save up the cash, or you'd have to come up with like half the down payment and then pay the rest off in 5 years. It was crazy what people did to get into a house before that, So a mortgage is a good thing. It's not, don't feel bad if you've got a mortgage. I just happened to be at the stage of the journey where I was able to like accelerate things a little bit. All my other debts were gone, and so anyway, I just want to make sure people know that.
Yeah, I like that.
Yeah.
Honestly, in the larger perspective of history, the 30-year mortgage is quite a gift. I mean, a lot of things had to come together for that to happen. So you're right. It's a good thing. It really is.
I do wonder if it's like, I was thinking about this morning, like, is it sort of like, how if you could buy cash for something, it's lower, but if you take it over payments, you end up paying more, and like, have prices been inflated because we have these mortgages now? Like, because the banks can charge a higher rate? I don't know.
Yeah,
being
it's true.
skeptical,
I know what you mean, though. Yeah, there's
Yeah.
there's so many things where like unintentional consequences come around, and
Yeah.
I mean just like college prices, like things inflate because there's whenever you add more money to it. But
Exactly.
I think on the whole, it's a good thing. 'Cause
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean,
before,
I'm
it
really,
was
but I had a
impossible.
lot of things work in my favor that not everybody has. I wasn't discriminated against in housing because of race. I had good income, and I didn't, I've had financial education from what I've learned. So there's just a lot of things that have put me in a good position to get to this point. So yeah,
Yeah, I love it. Love
yeah,
it.
Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up about the 30-year mortgage exists for a reason, because
Yeah.
that's something that messes with me. I work in the personal finance space. I work
Yeah.
alongside you two. I see all these people who are rushing to pay off their mortgage, and there's absolutely nothing wrong with that. But I'm just not in
Yeah.
a place where I can rush to
Yeah.
pay that off. I got teenage kids. I'm
Yeah.
saving for their colleges, and just getting them from one day to the next.
yeah.
And so it really took me a while
To get
to
comfortable.
just kind of like look at my mortgage and be like, it's
good
a
thing.
low interest rate.
Yeah.
It's a low monthly payment, and it puts a house. It gives me a house, puts
Exactly.
a roof over my head.
Totally.
That's a good thing, and I'm okay carrying that
Yeah.
for maybe longer than. Well, it's not gonna be longer than 30 years, but I'll pay it off a little bit earlier. Than that.
Yeah, you get it. Well, at one point, I remember you had an arbitrary rule of I'm not putting extra on my mortgage, and that was like a line in the sand you drew because you have a tendency to feel bad about all
Yeah.
the debt you have, and
Yeah.
you're like, no, I'm not going to feel bad about this. I'm going to be okay with it, and
Exactly.
that's great.
In fact, I'll tell you, my mom, she was almost done paying hers off, and I'm like, Mom, if she bought in the market where she bought, like it was way lower than what I bought for my first house. I'm like, Mom, cash out the equity. When the rates dropped to like under 3%, we refied her mortgage and she cashed out. I'm like, have the money. The mortgage, we did it in such a way that the mortgage payment didn't even change.
right.
And she cashed out. I'm like, have some money, enjoy your life. Like, so I'm
that's
definitely
a good point. When you're getting older, it's like, yeah, just like why don't you enjoy this?
enjoy yourself. Like, so I just feel like I don't want
Or
to
at
seem
least
like I'm
live,
coming.
you
I
know?
wanted to pay it off because I didn't want a mortgage in retirement, but I'm definitely not on team. Everybody has to do it. There's reasons
Totally.
to, so anyway.
I love that. I want you to talk a little bit about house selection, because when I first met you, Erin, about 7 years ago, when I first started working for YNAB, you were renting and you waited a long time. Like you really made sure you got the right house. And I remember all of us were rooting for you, hoping you got the right house. And there was lots of disappointment because there was one house that was like perfect and it fell through.
Yeah, that's right. I forgot about that.
Tell me more about that.
I think that was the start of when the market got really bad. There just weren't, the broker kept saying the inventory is so low, there just aren't. She kept saying, it's not usually like this. We should have found a house a year ago. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And so
you're in Maine where it's like, there's probably a lot of older folks and, sitting in houses and it takes a while for things to move over. Right.
Yeah. So, I mean, and then this one came along and it's been good, we'll see what life has ahead for me, but it's mine now. And I do feel a great sense of like, no one can take this from me. There is a little bit of that. And people said, oh, you could have put the money in this or that. I'm like, yeah, but this was a guaranteed return. I own it. And, it's just, I'm done. Like, I don't have to, it's just after doing it for over 20 years, I just wanted to be done. So, but it just took a while to find something. I could have probably, maybe I was too picky. I don't know. Sometimes I think, maybe I was, but I don't know. But
you found the perfect house and you were able to pay it off. And you could have, what I'm getting at is like, you could have raised the amount that you would be willing to pay. You probably could have found something faster, but you stuck to your guns there. And I think that was the right choice.
The rental I was in, he offered to sell it to me and it would have been way lower than this one, but that house had issues. I would have ended up spending, and it had no yard. I couldn't have been able to garden, or I couldn't have had a fenced in yard for the dog. So anyway, it all works out the way it's supposed to be.
And I think that was great.
Yeah.
I that was always, I'll always take that as an example. I hopefully I'll never move, but if I ever do, then I'll remember
sometimes
that.
I walk in a neighborhood near here with the dog where there's like houses that I've been in when I was looking, and I'm like, oh, should I have bought that one? And I was like, no, that doesn't have any kind of garage. And I always come back to the reasons why I didn't buy it. So I think you just have to kind of, you kind of know when you know. So
Yeah. Well, we should get into the nerdy details of like, so how did you do it like in the budget? Because you did some finagling. And I remember, Erin, I said, I think back in like
you were
January,
right. You were totally
you were
right.
like, I'm going to pay this off in November or something. And I was like,
October.
I bet you're going to pay it off in July or I think it's or in August. I think it's in
totally
August.
Called it. Well, I budget for all the YNAB'ers out there. I budget 2 months ahead. That's how I do Rule 4. I found anything beyond that feels too vague to be helpful to me. But 1 month doesn't, I like 2 months. So I budget out 2 months. So I had thought it was going to be October. And I thought, well, maybe September, because my side hustle usually brings in money like around late summer and the fall. And I'm like, maybe maybe summer, maybe September I'll get lucky. So it was April and I was budgeting out. I got paid in April and I was budgeting out for June. And I was like, oh, okay, cool. In July, actually in May, I'll budget for July. And in June, I'll budget for August. And I'm like, wow, I'm really getting close. And then I was like, oh my gosh, I'll have the money in June. You get so tied to the category balances that
you think like that money's not available to you.
Yeah, I'm like, because it's in the future. August, and I was like, what if and so I quickly like moved all the money back to June, and I was short like a couple thousand, and I was like, oh, I could either, I'm like, I don't have to decide today because it's not June, but I was like, it's either going to come out of the emergency fund or it would come out of my next car savings. And I just kind of sat on it. When the time came, I took it out of next car and I was like, okay, so now it's going to be the end of June when I get that last June paycheck. And then I went in the beginning of June, right, to look to see like what the balance was. And I noticed when you make an extra principal payment, they had like this drop down menu and it included the payoff. And it was way lower than the balance. And I called the bank and she's like, oh, well, we rolled the escrow so I was like, I think I'm done. So I just shuffled a little bit of money around and I paid it off in June because that was the month I took out the mortgage. So it was kind of like a little bookend.
Nice.
It was it was kind of stupid really. Because,
I don't know. There's something to that. I know what you mean. Where it's just like
psychological.
There's a poetry to it. Yeah. Yeah. Well, I just love that because I remember you told me that you're like, I think you like got on a call with me on Slack or something.
Yes. I think I messaged you because you're my mortgage payoff buddy.
Right. Yeah. Because we've been like tracking with each other and you were like, I could do this now. And it's so funny because we put money aside in the future for a month ahead or 2 months ahead and just don't even think that that's even available to us.
Yeah, that's how ingrained the method is, right? Like, I don't have that money. I'm like, yes, I do. I mean, I will say that when I did the payoff, my bank balances were like, I was like, whoa, this is a little like scary.
It felt a little weird.
It's fine. Like, I'm still budgeted 2 months out.
Yeah,
like,
and you don't have a mortgage payment. So
and I don't have a mortgage payment. So I'm like, it'll fill up. It'll come back fast. But it didn't really come back as fast because I had to immediately, out of the next last check in June, I had to pay the homeowner's insurance because I didn't have the escrow money.
Yeah.
And then I had to pay part of my property taxes. So, I mean, it's fine. But like, I was like,
it was like that for me
YNAB
too.
really messed with my head. Like,
is it 2 years ago? I think it was 2 years ago in August. Yeah, that I paid off my mortgage, and it was like that too. I talked about how I got an unexpected inheritance. I was supposed to have 2 or 3 more years left in the in the thing, and we were just like, let's just knock this out. But it wasn't quite enough. I think I needed like $6,000.
Okay.
And I took some money. I think I completely raided a next car fund and a few other things, and it was like that too, where I was like, oh, this feels a little weird, but like. So something about it, and I think a lot of people who paid off any kind of debt, you get to the end and you're just like,
the momentum takes over.
You just gotta do it. You just gotta do it. Like you get down to like, the last few $100s or last couple of $1,000s, and you're like, I have to make this happen. And so you just kind of rate everything.
I just rated a whole bunch of stuff.
You kind of put a meteor into your budget, but it's okay.
It'll recover now because we get paid every other week. So August is a 3 paycheck month.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if you remember that.
Oh,
yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It is.
Yeah.
That's fun. 3 paychecks a month for us.
Yeah. So I'll be fine by the fall. It'll be back to where it was, but it was almost surreal walking around going, I can't believe I paid it off, but so anyway, it was all, the other thing I did though, was that I used a spreadsheet. We didn't have the loan planner when I started. And so I just had this spreadsheet that I got from the site called mortgageprofessor.com. And that's spelled, we can drop a link in the description, but it's spelled mtgprofessor.com. And it was for accelerated biweekly mortgages. So mine wasn't twice a month. It was a 15-year, but it was every other week. So twice a year, I would have 3 payments.
Right.
But what they did on the spreadsheet is you put in all the specs of your loan, the interest rate, the terms, and then the spreadsheet just rolls down and it shows you every row is like a payment. And
yes,
then
this
have,
is what I did.
Yes, and they have 2 columns, one for extra payments, one is for like a regular extra payment. So I was like, well, I think I could do an extra, 100 or whatever it was. And you just roll that all the way down and it updates the payoff and how much interest you'll save. And then the other one the other extra payment column I used for windfalls like tax refunds, profit sharing, anything big like that. So, I mean, I feel like I haven't even had a profit sharing where I got to really decide what to do with the money because I was just throwing everything on the mortgage.
Yeah.
But I knew like we get profit sharing here, I get a tax refund sometimes here, and the side hustle brings in a little money here. So I was able to calculate the whole all the way down to figure out the payoff date. So yeah, but in the budget, because of the way the biweekly works, I don't know if anybody else out there has a biweekly, but because there are those months twice a year where you have to make 3 payments, I had to take the payment amount, multiply it times 26, divide by 12.
Okay.
To figure out how much money to set aside every month. So that category became very precious to me because I didn't want to mess that up.
And
so when I was thinking about like a windfall, or I would just I had another category called extra payments. I'm like, oh, it's time for one of those extra payments. And I would add money. And then when I got to the number that I was shooting for, I would move it into the regular thing and I would make the payment. So it all got tracked out of the same category. It's super nerdy, but like.
Yeah, that's just how I did it too. I did the exact same thing because you're right. You don't want to mess with that category you don't want to mix your savings up with.
I didn't want to be
because
short.
you're saving money for that 26 month thing.
Right.
So
and it's a little tricky because you had to like you do that math is easy, like 26, and then you divide by 12. But then I'm like, well, wait a minute. When's the first?
Oh yeah,
3 payment months. I've got to pad it.
This is a whole thing.
It is a whole
thing. You have to play catch up to because it depends on when you're. Yeah. Oh, this is like a thing of Rule 2. There's lots of Rule 2 funds like this where it's like
you've created spreadsheets just for those scenarios.
Well, it was my subscriptions category. I wanted to have one category for all my yearly subscriptions, and so I made this spreadsheet that was like, okay, if I pad it this much, and then if I do this much per month, I will be good, and it will never go negative until 2027 or something. And then I was just like, what am I doing? Like, things are gonna change. I'm not gonna have this Dropbox account. Like who knows? Like,
yes, it's totally
cares?
True. Yeah.
And I was just like, just forget it. Like, just put some money in there. It's gonna be fine.
Well, I must have padded it at some point because one of the things back in April was like, ooh, there's a little bit extra in there. Whoa, it's for a third payment, and then I would, that's not until, or I realized that by moving everything, I would be able to pay it off before that third payment. So there was a little surplus in there. It was a whole bunch of little things that kind of, I had to see it though. Mm-hmm. It's funny how you can get tunnel vision in the budget, you know what I mean? Like, but I finally was able to see the path out. So, people.
Well, there's so many things like when you pull up a spreadsheet like that. Like, so I had my own spreadsheet, just like yours, where I had like a little column for extra payments.
Yep.
And then I had like the mortgage payment going through, and it showed the current, like the balance with the interest and all this, blah, blah, blah. And then when I put in an extra payment, all the numbers going down 30 years would, or not,
update.
Or mine was 15 years, but they would all update going all the way down. And it was so fun.
Yes.
And there was something about playing with that.
Yes.
That made me realize, like, if I did this, I can do that. And
exactly.
There's so many things like that where it's just, it gets really fun. And then you're like, oh, this could actually affect my life.
See, now this is why you are my mortgage spreadsheet, like, soulmate, I guess.
Yes, exactly.
I totally understand everything you just said. So.
I don't have a mortgage spreadsheet. I mean, I'm not aggressively trying to pay it off.
You probably shouldn't, Ernie, because if you do, you'll probably blow up your budget. You'll blow up your budget.
I've played with them before, and I'm like, I just don't like these.
Oh, yeah.
I just do it in YNAB. I use the loan planner.
Oh, sure.
And it's fun because even like a small little change, like if I put $9 extra a month, I can see that saves me 5 months of time. And so it's fun.
Yeah.
It's fun to play with.
Yeah. When we were doing it,
the loan planners are
we didn't have the loan planner.
Right.
I think I paid off the mortgage. Like, I think we had the loan planner in beta because we were YNAB employees. And then they came out like the month after I paid off the mortgage. And I was like, come on.
Well,
I could have had so much fun with that.
The reason I didn't use it though is because my bank, there's a really great local bank, and they allowed me to buy down the rate. They offered this thing where you give them like $350 and they'll give you the lower rate for the rest. So the terms changed in the middle, and it just felt like the math wasn't going to be right anyway. So
totally. But yeah, if you do have a conventional mortgage, like, go in there
totally,
and play with it,
like
or any debt, not just a mortgage, but any debt.
Yeah.
Like just see, okay, because you can forecast in there. Like you can.
That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah, we're talking about the loan planner tool. You can look it up if you haven't tried it out yet. But like you can say, what if I put aside an extra like $10 a month? Like, what happen? Or what if I put aside an extra 100 or 1,000 bucks a month?
Exactly.
And just play with it, and you get a graph, and it tells you how much interest you save, that's actually really interesting, because I was all about, when I was doing all my forecasting, I was all about how much time am I going to save, like how quickly am I going to pay off the mortgage. I never really thought about how much interest I was saving until
Do you know
I
the
started.
number? Because I know my number.
Oh, let me look. I might have to calculate it.
What's your number,
I
Erin?
saved $40,000 in interest by paying it off early. Of money that I would have had to pay.
Yeah.
And you
That's crazy.
could argue that it might not be worth the same amount later, but I paid
figure this out
the
right
interest
now.
I paid on the loan was like $13,000. Like that doesn't.
Oh, I got it.
Okay.
I saved $17,200.18 of interest. There you go.
I knew you had it. I knew you had it back
Yeah,
there.
I knew. Of course, it's in here. It's in here. Yeah.
But I'm glad you talked about the numbers, because I ran some numbers back of the envelope, because I do think if somebody's out there listening and they're kind of intrigued by this, they may be a little further along their journey, and they're thinking, well, we've got all the rest of the debt gone. I wouldn't pay a mortgage off before. I mean, I did my credit card debt first. My student loans were long gone. You know what I mean? All that other stuff was gone. But if it's last, like if you take a $225,000 mortgage, just for discussion, a 30-year mortgage at 6.8%, which I think is close to today's rate, the payment would be $1,466, not including escrow, right?
Okay.
If you round it up to $1,500, just adding $34, you save $25,000 in interest, and you pay off the mortgage 2 years early.
What?
That's
$40 a month?
Mm-hmm. And if you add it up to $1,600, so you're adding $134 extra a month, you would save $77,000 in interest over the life of the loan and pay off the mortgage 6.5 years early.
Wow.
So I guess my point for those folks is, like, I would never tell somebody, especially here, or I don't know someone's situation, what they should or shouldn't do. That's a personal decision. Mm-hmm. But an hour with a calculator, play with the loan planner for an hour.
You're dreaming. That's what you're doing.
You're just trying to see. You might go, an extra $34 to take a couple of years, I'll do that. Or you might say, no, I feel good with what we're, our other plans. And that's peace of mind, so that you're not beating yourself up constantly about not paying it off. Do you know what I mean? So I think that's worth an hour. If someone's kind of on the fence or kind of intrigued, there's nothing wrong with getting information. And that's all that is.
Well, it's especially true with mortgages, because especially if you have a 30-year mortgage, because the time scale is so huge compared to like a 2-year personal loan or something.
Yes, true.
Where, just a small amount just shifts the numbers massively,
Right.
And so, it's probably the most fun one to play with.
And I ran that at 6.8%. And if you have a mortgage you've had for a while, you probably are at like 4 or 5, because the rates are up right now. You know what I mean? So the impact is even greater of being able to add more to. So I'm just saying, like, it's worth playing with a calculator. It's worth playing with the loan planner for an hour to see.
Just go play around. I mean, if you're watching this or you're listening to this, you're one of those people that would do that. So go try it.
It's crazy math.
It's crazy.
It's crazy to me. It's like math. It's like compound interest. It's the same kind of thing. It's like,
exactly. That's what it is. Yeah. It's just because of the compound interest, a small amount ends up becoming this large amount, and it's just shocking.
That's right.
Yeah. So, and it's not just for mortgages. I mean, I think, like I said, it's the most dramatic for mortgages because of the long.
You're right. It's the long runway. Yeah.
But for any loan, you could play with it, and it's pretty shocking sometimes.
Yeah. So,
Erin, I want to hear about wiggle room and how you freed up money in the budget, because you mentioned windfalls, you mentioned extra income. I mean, how lean was your budget?
the last year it was a little lean. Like I went out and
you sound pretty weary about
it.
I
was like, I don't want to sustain this, but when you can see the light at the end of the tunnel, you kind of power through. But, I did a kitchen renovation like almost over a year and a half ago. It kind of had to be done. Yep. And that was the kind of thing where it was like the trade-off of like, well, I could have put that all on the mortgage, but I live here.
Right.
So I do think there were moments where I was like, do I want this? No, I'm going to wait and put that money to the mortgage. Or I'd be like, no, I'm going to buy the thing. But the last year I was really running as lean as as lean as I would. So now it's funny, like people say, well, now do you know how much you need now? You can figure out what your expenses are for going into retirement. And I'm like, well, I don't really know because I was lean for the last stretch. I need to like get to a place where I feel comfortable with my spending, like where I don't, not worrying so much. And, so I did do a couple of things immediately. Like I maxed out my Roth, like I was a little bit behind and so some of those retirement things I immediately fixed, and I started putting money back into the car account, but I should still have quite a bit of margin. I'm just trying to figure out where am I comfortable? Like, I don't want to have to worry about it,
Mm-hmm. And how about the budget when you first started, the payoff? I mean, were you looking for places to cut? Were you kind of slowly easing into the aggressiveness?
At the beginning, I was easing in because when you buy a new house, even if this is an old Cape, but like even if you buy an old house, like there's going to be things.
Mm-hmm.
Like anybody who's out there, like budget a category for extra things for the house because there's going to be things.
Yes.
And I didn't know. I knew that there was a thing that happened at the inspection where I'm on a septic system out here because it's rural Maine and that failed the inspection. So the seller had to contribute and I contributed. We kind of came to terms on how to pay for that. And I had to get that done when I moved. So I was like a little cautious the first 6 months or so. And I'm like, I don't know how much it's going to cost to heat this house. I don't know what the average utility bills are going to be. So I kind of waited until I was probably 6 months in. And then I was like, well, I think I'd been sending like an extra 100. And then I was like, I think I can do a little more. And I gradually increased it. And then I just when in the spreadsheet, I said, well, I'm going to get a little bit of a raise here and there. I think like every 6 months I added like another $25 or $50. Okay. And I just played that out. I'm like, well, I should be able to do that. I won't feel it, but sometimes I think, obviously I feel like I make good money. They are very good to me here, but I also feel like it's amazing sometimes, even when back in the early days of budgeting with YNAB, when I was really broke, like I was always amazed how I could find a little bit of money for something that was over, like, oh, the electricity bill was high. Oh, I was already feeling so broke this month. And then I would look through the budget and I would find the $17. It's always amazing to me. It's like the couch cushions of my life. Like,
I just had that happen this morning. Ernie's going to laugh at me because I get so mad about the escrow people because they're always like, oh, we need more money. Well, and I'm like, I could do this better myself. Well, apparently I can't because because the homeowner's insurance was like $300 higher than it's supposed to be. Supposed to be what my budget said it was supposed to be. But it went up.
It's interesting timing because I got my property tax bill and I had to pay it, and inside it was a note saying that next year is going to be a reevaluation year. Mm-hmm. I'm like, might as well just start adding some extra money to that property tax category right now.
So I usually base it on what it was when I paid it. Like, so like now I'm saving for next year and I'm saving that. And I'm like, I probably should save a little more because it's always going to go up. It's not going to go down. I mean, come on.
But you will be able to find it. You found it, right? Like,
yes, that's what I'm saying. Like this morning I went through the budget and, I had to find, and also I paid car insurance went up. I paid like all my insurance at once and I needed to find like $400 and I was just like poking around. I found it. It's fine. Like it's going to be okay.
That's the power of the long-term commitment to this. I think of like, it becomes this like little, I got to pull a rabbit out of a hat. Here's a rabbit.
That's such a good analogy because it's always a surprise. You're like, because you're like, oh, I got to find $400. Like, this is terrible. And then you're like, oh, there it is. And there it is. And there it is. And, if you've been budgeting for a long time, that starts to happen.
It's the power of consistently living on less than you bring in.
Mm-hmm. Right. And for me, it was rule 2. Once I actually started saving those true expenses, then I actually started saving. And so when those big changes came down the pipeline, I could react to them. I had options because I had that cash.
It's options. That's what it's really true about the options. Like before YNAB, my only option was to throw it on the card.
Right.
But you make different decisions. Like, and I think that's the thing about it is it's the clarity of like, okay, here's everything laid out in front of you. Mm-hmm. If you want to find another $1,000 for the mortgage payment, where is it going to come from? And like, what are you going to go? And even the decision to pay it off so quickly there in June, knowing that the bank balances were going to plummet, like, but I was still okay because I was budgeted out for 2 months and I still had my emergency fund and I was like, I'm still okay. Like, it's not, and I do think when you've been doing this for a long time, there was something, how in the beginning when you start with YNAB, there's all this like juice and energy behind like getting in the budget and doing things. And even if you felt broke, like you felt in control, you felt empowered.
Right.
And there was something about that having the bank balances drop. It was like back to the old days of like, okay, pay attention, like make sure you're watching. And like, it didn't necessarily mean cutting, but like, I don't know, it kind of reinvigorated me a little bit to like be engaged.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, you
know?
get on autopilot a little
You
bit.
do, yeah.
And then when something big happens like this, you're like, oh, I got to reassess everything. And I mean, that's going to happen once you repair the damage here, you're going to have choices about that mortgage payment and also all the money you were putting on top of it.
Right.
And so you're going to have a whole new budget and it's going to be really invigorating.
I think it's going to take 3 or 4 months really to figure out how to do it. Cause I had a little category for next month's money and I would try to build up in there. And now I'm like, well, I could just go out. I don't know. It just feels a little different. I feel a little bit like unmoored, but I'm sure that I'll find my way. That feeling.
Yeah, I paid mortgage off in August 2 years ago, and I don't think I actually made decisions like permanent budget changes until November. So it was like a while of like kind of just, okay, what's going on, And I think I even put some money aside in a category and just like parked it because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do yet,
Well,
so
here's my big thought, and maybe you can have me back on in January. My budget goes back to 2016.
Oh, wow. Nice.
It is a original web app budget.
Same budget.
7 years now. And
wow.
maybe I'll start a new budget.
Yeah.
In January.
I think you should.
Everything's a little scary. Like
that is a
it's
long.
Not actually that scary.
Yeah.
You don't think it's scary?
No.
I mean,
I just made a new one in the middle of June.
I mean, I say this, I tell people all the time, oh, just start over. Like, but here it is. I'm like, then I would like, well, I would still have it.
Right.
Yep.
And I would be cleaner kind of going into like, because it is a big change to not have a mortgage.
It's a new season of life.
It is a new season of life. But my budget followed me through all the last 7 years of seasons of my life,
It's true.
But I am leaning that way. I think how clean it would be.
You could do a mini fresh start. You keep the same file and just like send everything to Radio Sign or something.
But you know what, though? There's like, I could keep the history and the other budget if I needed to look up something.
Yeah.
And
also, that history might not really serve you anymore because things have changed so much.
Exactly. And there's so many categories that I hid.
Oh, right.
And there's so many payees that are from like,
it's
it's
the
just
pays.
Like, the pays.
Just delete all the pays. Yeah, sometimes I just want to like delete them all and start over.
Yeah. So I don't know. Maybe we'll see how I feel about it. But I don't know why it feels scary. I remember before we had even Dropbox as a backup. I'm going way back because I've been budgeting for a while. My computer died and I lost my budget because there was no way to recover it. It was like it sat on your desktop at the time. And I remember being like 5 minutes of like, oh my gosh, I lost my budget. What am I going to do? And then I was like, I still have the money.
Right.
I still have the money and I still know what's important to me.
And you have the skills too.
Right.
You know, that's really what's powerful is the skills and also the money.
So I guess I should take my own advice, but anyway.
I do love that. I still have the money. It's not like, because you feel like that. Like if my budget got deleted right now, I'd feel like I didn't have any money.
Right.
Yeah.
And for a hot second. Like, it's got me internally like, it's a part of my core being now. Like,
yeah, it's so true.
I get it.
So
it's so true.
Of course you do. You guys are the budget nerds. So.
Yeah, I was going to say, spoken like a true budget nerd. So awesome. Well, anything else you want to add about the mortgage payoff?
Nope. Just, if everything else is paid off, that's an okay time. I think, obviously this is just, everybody's situation is different, but I think it's worth spending some time with a calculator if you're on the fence. But if you've got other stuff, or if you're young and your mortgage is 3 years old and you've got babies and kids, like,
yeah. Don't worry about
it.
Yeah. It's good.
Power
it's good.
on, mortgages serve a purpose. So, yeah.
Awesome. All right. Should we do some YNAB wins?
I want to hear them.
All right.
Let's do it then.
Let's do it.
All right. My win comes from Elizabeth. Elizabeth commented on the Can I Afford This episode many, many months ago. My win is that with tax season upon us, my mom wanted us to throw any return to debt. Well, I said it didn't make sense with my budgeting spreadsheet and YNAB. It won't accomplish a significantly faster debt payoff. It would be better for savings and long-term expenses. She was adamant that wasn't true. And my dad pipes up and says, honey, maybe we should let her handle it. She probably knows better than us how to use a budget. Awesome.
That is awesome. Yeah.
I danced quietly because he understood that I'm pretty darn responsible and just want my husband to be debt-free.
That is great.
That is awesome. Congratulations. And Elizabeth. And yes, you are pretty darn responsible.
Yes.
Yeah.
For sure. Totally good decision to put money away, like no downside to that.
Yeah.
Awesome. I have an email that came in from Marcy, her YNAB win. She said, we moved from the consumer debt payoff stage to the investment and mortgage paydown stage. Paper chains and coloring charts continue to be quite motivating. Nice. Thanks again to the 2020 Debt Bootcamp community. For me, it was spreadsheets, but if it's paper chains and coloring charts, I 100% support that. Whatever keeps you moving. So
if you're more of a crafty
Marcy.
person,
yeah,
I do love those coloring charts.
Awesome. I love it, Marcy. That's great.
That's so fun. That's so fun. All right, I got a bit of a longer one from Chris, who wrote an over email. It said, "Hello, Ben and Ernie and Erin. I spent my 20s and a good chunk of my 30s being very irresponsible with money. I've floated bills from month to month. I've spent money I didn't have on credit cards. I've had very official, very sternly worded letters from landlords and their lawyers telling me to pay my rent or else. Not a good time, as you can imagine. I carried around so much stress, anxiety, and shame that I don't know how I got out of bed in the morning. I'd given YNAB a shot a few years ago and bounced off of it, but after listening to Jesse's book on a road trip upstate, everything clicked. I now had a mission to not just fix my money situation, but fundamentally change how I approached my spending. It took me a very long time, much longer than I would have liked, but my wife and I are finally living off of last month's income. Yay. Our mortgage, our groceries, utilities, everything is covered, and we're just getting started." I love that. We're just getting started.
Awesome.
I've dreamed of this day for a while, but now it's here. I feel like I finally have solid ground underneath me. Now I can start building on that momentum and make some truly amazing things happen in the future. Thanks for listening and for all you do for the YNAB community. Wow.
That's amazing.
Amazing.
I'm
so good.
I'm going to cry.
A completely different life.
Yeah.
Completely different life.
I'm telling you that getting a month ahead is such a killer, Such a killer move.
And I love that, we're just getting started.
Yep.
The sky's the limit here. So
for sure.
Man, awesome. So cool. So cool. All right. Thank you so much for that. If you want to send us a win, if you're watching on YouTube, just leave a comment. Or if you want to send us an email, budgetnerds@ynab.com. And you can also just send questions or comments. We try to listen to any email or any comment that you send. We read them all, and we try to respond to as many as we can. So happy to get back to you.
All right, friends. Thanks again, Erin. Thank you.
Thanks
we'll have you on a third time, I'm sure.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, Erin, so much. This was great.
Awesome.
All right. Until next time, happy budgeting.
Happy budgeting.
Happy budgeting.